What type of work do you usually get drawn to?
It usually has something to do with mythology. I did a piece about Persephone that I worked on for many years, the myth of Persephone.
Nice.
And now I'm working on my CCC project. And I'm fascinated in these moments of scientific breakthroughs. I've been working on a piece for a while about the discovery of the Higgs boson, which was this elusive section of particle physics that was very, very important to all of the experimental and theoretical particle physics people in their center in CERN. And when they thought that they might have found this Higgs boson, there was this great excitement, and there was so much excitement that the news reached me. I think I was directing a play out in the north woods of Wisconsin, and this piece of news it was so important that it reached me in my remote location. I remember thinking, my goodness, this is important that I hear about it, but I don't know, you might as well be speaking another language. What is this? I know nothing about this. And the way I tend to deal with things I don't know about is research. I do a lot of research, then make a piece of theater about it. Okay, so I've been working on a piece about the Higgs boson, and what does it mean for us as human beings, and what does it mean for us as theater artists and theater makers? I'm really curious about this idea of how do you make order out of chaos. And the Higgs boson is part of a way of understanding the universe. And so how do theater artists understand the universe? So there's a lot of engagement and conversation that I think we can have between those two domains and across those disciplines.
Right. You mentioned working in other places outside of New York. Yeah. I know you also worked in Italy. I can't remember where else you worked.
Greece.
Greece, yes. Tell me how it is working outside of the United States.
Yeah.
That must be really different.
It is. So what's taken me to Italy and to Greece is I'm a part of a collaborative called the Worldwide Lab. We're a group of directors that met at the Lincoln Center Theater Directors Lab, and we really liked working together, and we really liked experimenting with different models of co-directing, because directing can be a very lonely thing. There's usually only one director on every project, and that's just the way it is. And we started to question, well, is that the best way to tell a story? What are the challenges? And there are a lot of challenges to have more than one director working on a project and to try to engage in a process of co-directing. So we're a very international collective, and the year that we went to Italy, I was co-directing an adaptation of, or I guess more of a meditation on King Lear with a Greek director in Rome. Oh, wow. And then I got the opportunity to travel to Greece, to a little island called Syros, where I was working with a Taiwanese director, co-directing on a Greek play in Greek with Greek-speaking actors.
So you had to learn Greek.
Well, I had to. The play was an adaptation of a comedy called The Ecclesiazusai, which I was familiar with in English.
Right.
So I had my side-by-side translation. But what was wonderful is I really depended on figuring out a way for all of us in the room to communicate, because the actors were Greek. So they understood the language, but my co-director is Taiwanese, I'm American, so all of us need to work really hard to figure out a way to communicate not just with each other, but with this story. Yeah. So it was a joyful challenge. It allowed us to work in ways and with different constraints, and a different sense of urgency that I think any of us had ever worked with before. So it was, it's sometimes just good to set yourself up with an insurmountable challenge and then surmount it.
Go in. Yeah. And it went well, I take it.
Yeah, it went really well. I mean, it was fascinating because it was performed in Greek for a Greek-speaking audience. So I learned a lot about how the piece was going by the audience's reaction to it, because they got jokes that you didn't know was jokes. They got nuances that I couldn't get. And I think that's very scary for a director, because the director wants to know everything, and it's sort of you're submitting to the fact that that whatever you're creating is bigger than you, and that's okay. So I don't know if I could make a habit of it, but it was definitely a great experience.
Wow, I know you must have learned a lot on that one.
Yes, I did.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. What other kind of lessons have you learned outside of this one? That's clear.
For being a director, one of the main lessons that I've learned is about differences in vocabulary. I think as a director, one of the things that you can do to be good at what you do is to try to familiarize yourself with all of the main schools of training that your actors may come from. Because it's important to understand what each actor may need. Because, you know, even when you're pulling an ensemble together, you need to make sure that your actors are even comfortable working in an ensemble. And it's on you. If you feel like you're communicating something clearly, but the person you're talking to, your actor, doesn't 100% understand, it's not their problem, it's your problem.
That's true.
You need to figure out a way to communicate with someone so that they can understand and that they can grow from whatever note that you're giving them. So that's a big thing that I've learned. It's very frustrating, but then once you let go of that and it's just, okay, let's figure out how we're gonna communicate. It's even when we're both speaking English.
Right. Okay, so tell me this then, because I know when you go to acting school, you obviously learn each technique that, whatever school you're going to. It depends on what school you're going to. But as a director, when you're in school, are you given all the techniques that actors are given, or no? How does that work for you?
It depends on the training, of course, and that's something I'm trying to be very conscious of as I go to sort of remake this MFA program in directing. Directors are taught how to communicate with and using time and space, because those are the two main tools that directors have to work with in the theater. Beyond that, you need to decide how much of what your process you want to make transparent to your actors. Do you want them to understand why they need to enter stage right? Well, it's not just a, you know, it's not a haphazard made choice. Actually, it's very important that this love story moment is played down right, because it's going to feel different than if it was played down left. And you have to decide as a director, is that going to be a useful conversation to have with your actor? Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. It depends on the actor. So part of directing training should be giving you the opportunity to get to know all the different trainings that your actors might be hailing from and what they might be comfortable with. Because you can get yourself off track pretty easily. In the same way, you never want to give the right note becomes the wrong note if given at the wrong time. You know, the best actor can become not the best actor if you insist on not working with that actor in a way that works for them more than works for you.
Right. So I'm sure you don't like ask each person, well, what are you used to doing? How do you figure out instinctively? How are you figuring out where they're coming from?
So for me, during the audition and especially the callback process, I'm really curious in how the actor is just physically present on stage. Are they very internal? And I tend to shy away from that, but it works for certain roles. Or are they taking risks? Are they willing to be vulnerable? In this moment where, you know, in callbacks or auditions, when it might be argued they have very little power and the director or whoever's on the other side of the table has all the power, how do they exist in that realm? Do they shut down? Do they push into the pressure? You just learn a lot about people in stressful situations. So I really enjoy seeing what they do on their own, and then if I give them a little note that might be, you know, open for interpretation, just see what they do with it. You know, do they want to have a conversation with me about what I mean, or do they want to try something and throw themselves into it, and maybe that's right and maybe that's wrong. But it's really important for me just to see how actors engage with space and then how actors engage with each other. Are they giving? Does it not matter who they're on stage with? Is there chemistry between them and the rest of the ensemble? Yeah, and it's, you know, it's always a little scary doing casting because you never know exactly what's going to happen. But, you know, you really have to trust your gut, trust your instincts, and hope that your read on someone and your read on how they feel about what you're asking them to do is accurate.
Right.